Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Demon Folklorist. Yep, that's me. I'm the Demon Folklorist. And today we are going to be talking about sirens and mermaids. So, this entire episode came out of me going to one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen called Playas de Tijuana in Mexico. And just being like, you know what? I bet you anything Aphrodite's been here, or maybe La Sirene from Haitian voodoo, because it just seems like the kind of place where if Aphrodite came right up on a shell, you'd be like, yeah, this makes sense. She would hang out here. And errant thoughts of mine end up becoming podcast episodes. Also, I am a double Pisces sun and moon with a Taurus rising. So yeah, I vibe with Aphrodite quite a bit. Mermaids in general. I have so much water in my chart that it's like unbelievable, but they aren't my favorite creatures, but I do have love for them. I had good memories of them as a child. Like Little Mermaid was my favorite Disney movie when I was a kid. I would watch that over and over and over again, and now I actually can't watch it because of that. So I kind of ruined that for myself, but anyway, by mermaid, I mean half woman, half fish. Most people know what mermaids are, but just in case, or you wanted to know what definition I'm working off of. Now, sirens are a little different. Sirens sing. That's like the main thing that they do. And back during the time of the Odyssey, for instance, they were half fish and half bird women. And they had voices that could drown anybody who heard them because men would hear them and then they would dive into the sea because what they heard was their heart's desire in their songs. Anywhere where you find water, you're going to find mermaids. So lakes, streams, oceans, even fountains and wells, salt water, fresh water, it doesn't matter. Every single culture and country has lore about this. So it means that something is going on. And it's like, yeah, I've seen mirages, like we've all seen them, but how crazy is it that we're all having the same kind of mirages of these beautiful women who sing or don't sing or comb their hair or look in mirrors? Like, it just doesn't seem possible over hundreds and hundreds of years that we're all seeing just mirages. So that's kind of what's fueling this particular episode. By the way, the ocean is really scary. Like, it's so deep. We haven't even covered half of it in exploration. It freaks me out a little bit. And then the sea itself is also this intriguing symbol that can be representative of the human unconscious. Its depths are undiscovered. It doesn't have any light, and it's a very mysterious place. And we can't even begin to comprehend what's down there. So, like giant squid, for instance, we don't even know how big they fully get. A baby one is like the size of a car. Think if a giant squid grew up to its full potential, it would probably be the size of the Kraken. And that might be where we got those stories. That is terrifying. The idea that there might be an Atlantis or mermaids or sirens running around, yeah, I could believe it. Anyway, so researchers think that the archetype of the mermaid is alluring to humans because of their chiaroscuro qualities. And this is a term from painting that means a blending of dark and light. And I think the mermaid really embodies that. Dark and dangerous. She can also be beautiful and alluring and even kind. It just depends on the story. And she can drag men to the depths of the sea. Researchers think that they mirror the qualities of regular women. That women can be wonderful and kind, and they can also be dark and dangerous. Human beings have that capacity, and maybe they are our mirror to that sort of behavior. But weirdly, the sea is often portrayed as feminine, and if you really think about it, all life really began in the sea billions of years ago, so it kind of mirrors how we grew in our mothers. So maybe the ocean as feminine isn't really too far off. But I do find that these psychological insights are often really fascinating too, about why we view the water and these sort of creatures as being inherently feminine. The first ever mention of mermaids is actually from Assyria in 1000 BCE, a sea goddess fell in love with a human. My thought would be that any children of theirs would be mermaids, but no, it's actually somehow from the sea goddess. She threw herself into a lake and somehow transformed for some reason, and that's how we got mermaids. I don't know. I don't understand this story, but okay. We also have ancient Sumerian myths that tell us about mermaids, how they taught us science and arts. And also in Babylonian times, there was a mermaid called Ea. It's E-A. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he explained agriculture and architecture to humans. We have this going on of these like ancient mermaids and or entities coming to shore and teaching early humans what they needed to know to survive. And you see that with jinn, you see that with all sorts of things, really. And water goddesses have been worshipped in several ancient cultures. And from their own trysts with other deities, with humans, probably came merfolk. Different cultures believe different things about how merfolk came to be. Usually mermaids are talked about because mermen actually aren't. They aren't really mentioned very often, so it's hard to say how real they are since we have no idea how mermaids procreate. Maybe they don't need mermen. Maybe that was just us ascribing the idea of the way that humans procreate onto a mermaid. We really don't know. Maybe mermaids have a thought and then that's a baby. I don't know. Like, I've never met a mermaid. I can't tell you how they procreate. But mermen are also kind of like an afterthought. And they're not really thought of unless they're in the context of, well, how do mermaids mate? There are accounts of people seeing mermen, but they've also said that they're super ugly and undesirable. And then, like, on the other hand of that, you have the Scandinavian and German legends where they're very handsome. Sometimes human women even fall in love with these mermen in these stories. And we have no idea if mermen sing or not. Has anybody, like, thought about that? Like, in some legends, they do have musical ability, but more like in accompaniment. Mermaids don't really attack people either. They don't need to. Their song or their beauty can lure and destroy men. But apparently mermen do attack people, and they make weapons out of coral and animal teeth and such, like that they're a lot more warlike. Really interesting stuff, and it tells a lot about our own psychology, I think. The Roman poet Ovid wrote that mermaids were born of wood of the Trojan ships that burned during the Trojan War. And then Irish legend tells us that the pagan women who were cast out by St. Patrick during the Christianity takeover actually became mermaids. In Latvia and Estonia, mermaids are the Hebrew children who drowned during Exodus by Pharaoh in the Red Sea. So, yeah, it's fascinating all the different legends that come out of their creation. But no matter what, it's still thought that these beings are alive and they are currently living in our world today. From ancient Greece, we also have elementals called undines, and these are beings without bodies that inhabit the elements, so earth, air, fire, and water, and they're thought to be a type of spirit that usually appears in fresh water, and at times they're witnessed by humans. Undines were the water elementals, and they're the ancestor, possibly, of what we think of as mermaids. They also sing. They're very beautiful and they're immortal, but apparently undines don't have souls, but they can gain them by carrying a human child in their womb. So we got lots of similarities. We have Odysseus from Homer's The Odyssey wanting to be tied to the mast of his ship so he could hear what the sirens were singing about. He alone had his ears uncovered, and apparently it was quite difficult for him because they sang about all his heart's desires, his deepest, most secret wants in this world. And if he had not been tied, he definitely would have jumped. Mermaids weren't always beautiful either, because once again, in Greek mythology, they were these half bird, half women. Like, they were like mostly bird with the head of a, what do you call it? Like, they were mostly bird in their bodies, and then they had the heads of women. That sounds, like, terrifying to me. But depending on the story, mermaids are said to look very different than the way we think of them. Perhaps what people were seeing were these normal sea creatures like manatees, or something maybe even more humanoid looking from a distance, and then the mist was tampering with the sailor's view. I could believe that, especially in some of these. So, yes, these could be illusions created by the sea, and maybe we're all just crazy, like collectively, but sailors thought that they were seeing half fish, half women. Supposedly, stupid Columbus saw mermaids in the Caribbean, but I dismissed that man's existence because fuck Columbus. He initiated an entire genocide of the Arawak people. So, the reason I mention it though is because he was like, oh, yeah, I saw them, but they weren't very pretty. Like, you probably just saw a sea cow, you dipshit. Anyway, English explorer Henry Hudson saw mermaids in the Arctic Circle in 1608. And that really just makes me think about temperatures. Like, what can mermaids withstand and even thrive in? Because that's a whole lot of a different thing than Caribbean. So, are there mermaids that are perfectly built for Arctic places, or are they immune to the temperatures of the water? It's really hard to say, but it's fascinating to think about. And then, why is it mostly men who saw these mermaids? Women have witnessed this as well, but it's not as often. And it's thought to be a Jungian kind of subconscious thing, that men who aren't very connected to their own feminine sides see women kind of as dangerous but beautiful, and that it's a depth of ourselves that we're actually projecting of what we fear. John Smith from, the Pocahontas story, saw a mermaid in Massachusetts and said she had green hair and wasn't unattractive. In the 1600s, a man was let down into the water off the Isle of Man in the UK, and he claimed to see this beautiful underwater city of coral and pearl. Did his oxygen just get cut off, or did he see, like, maybe a similar city to the legendary Atlantis or actual Atlantis? I mean, we don't know. Again, what I love about legends is that we have no idea, and we're going off of this one person's experience, but I don't think it should be dismissed. I mean, he probably didn't go down there expecting to see this beautiful thing. And also, how far down did he go? And also, again, did he get his oxygen cut off a little bit? I don't know. I was not there. Funny thing, most of our ideas about what mermaids even look like come straight from the Victorian period. Bare ankles were causing a stir, so it was a way to paint all this repressed sexuality, because mermaids, in effect, aren't human. So, like, I guess it was a way for them to kind of, like, skirt around that problem. And then during the Middle Ages, we had depictions of evil mermaids, and they were considered to be bad luck. And this idea was encouraged by the church because mermaids were seen as vain and lustful, or lust-producing creatures. And some said if you saw a mermaid, you'd never return home again. So when Christianity became more popular, sirens, the bird women, became more fishy and serpent-like in appearance. And it's thought that they didn't want mermaids who were lustful and vain to be associated with angels who had feathered wings, so they became more similar to the serpent. I find that very interesting, that projections of what people were worried about, like the church, the repressed sexuality of the Victorian period, that it became how we view mermaids. Mermaids may not look at all like what we're thinking. And then once again, vanity is one of the 7 deadlies, and early churches used mermaids as a symbol of that vanity, but really, mermaids are most likely connected to fertility and love goddesses like Aphrodite, and that's probably why they're always seen combing their hair. And not only that, the hair is seen in folklore as being a symbol of femininity, a symbol of women in general and their power being in their hair. That's why a lot of religions have women cover up their hair. And not only that, we also see this like really interesting dichotomy of mermaids as being alluring and sexy, right? But also having basically a chastity belt. Their tail. So they're basically unattainable. Some stories have their tail change into legs, or their one tail comes apart as kind of like tail legs. I don't know. It sounds horrifying. Media has cast mermaids as less singy than their siren ancestors, and often less dangerous too, because now they're a merchandising tool aimed mostly at young women, though it's kind of weird that they're oddly still like super curvy and there's like not a ton of clothing going on. It's just one of those things that you have to wonder, okay, does everybody remember the M&M thing? Like, men were getting up in arms like, oh my gosh, like the M&M isn't sexy anymore. And it's like, why are you sexualizing an M&M? But it kind of makes me think of that. And it's pretty gross. Like, why are we over sexualizing archetype kind of figure for young women? And then sometimes in media, we have like a nod to their really dangerous past. The one that came to mind for me was Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. In it, like if you haven't seen it, it's one of the many Pirates movies. So this one, we have like the beautiful women who lure men into the water, and they're actually singing as they do this. And then they transform into beasts once they're under and they kill the men. Another really interesting thing, mermaids never have short hair. Like, ever. Their hair is part of their mythology. And it's always long. And it's said to be many colors. Anything that you could possibly pull from the sea, like blue, green, even silver or blonde. It also really depends on the area. Like Scandinavia has a lot more blondes going on. Anyway, but mermaids are always seen combing their hair and looking in mirrors. And they're depicted this way in art, usually in connection with Aphrodite. Maybe this is like some literal kind of magic, like a spell that she casts on the onlooker. Or maybe she's just trying to keep her hair nice. Like, I don't know. I don't know why a mermaid is always seen combing her hair. And then, like, this is a really wild claim, but supposedly mermaids have actually been found and dissected, and their anatomy has been analyzed. And this is what they found. Inside, their bodily fluids are a turquoise color. They have lips, tongues, and rows of tiny little teeth. They have oil secretion at the hairline, so it helps keep their hair, not horrible in the water, I'm guessing. A girdle-like bone to support the tail. Only one lung and very small hearts without any of the other human organs. And it's hard to say how they produce or even if they can. Naturally, I'm skeptical, but I'm also like, what if? Like, I think that's the fun part about these kinds of legends. What if a mermaid actually had been dissected and this is what we found inside? Hopefully, we did not kill her so we could dissect her. But it does raise really fun, interesting questions about, like, living creatures and how this creature might have come into contact with humans. Maybe they're not mermaids at all, at least not the way we think of them. Maybe they do sing. Animals make sounds. Like, some of them do sing. Like, what about birds? Like, again, half-bird women. Singing is not something that is reported when people witness mermaids. And I wonder if it was because maybe they were singing at certain times or in certain places. Or did they hear the dark hearts of men and decide to drown them? Or do these men lose their minds when they hear this otherworldly, ethereal music? Or are the men trying to rescue them and they drown in the process? Sometimes it's told mermaids decide that they like somebody and end up drowning them because they forget that humans can't breathe underwater. And then at other times, the man is turned into a merman when the mermaid does this. Like, I would like to believe that the man was able to transform, because otherwise you have a dead person, not good. It's a very kind of optimistic view of this entire interaction with mermen and mermaids and humans. We also have in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, the Shetland Islands, and the Faroe Islands, the legend of the Selkie. So Selkies are seals that transform into people and vice versa. They come on land and they meet humans that they fall in love with and remove their seal skins. If a man finds the seal skin, the Selkie cannot return home to the sea, which feels very cruel to me, but, that's me. Homesickness and transformation are really common in mermaid and mermaid-adjacent creature stories. Though these water dwellers are very curious about the outside world, they usually end up returning to the sea at some point. In these stories, it's very, very rare that a mermaid will actually stay on land the entire time of her life. And then Scottish legend tells us that if you're in danger from merfolk, all you have to do is toss silver away from you because they love silver. So if you ever get into some water trouble, it might be a good thing, a good distraction. The Russian Rusalki lives in fresh water, and it's said to be a very dangerous creature. She loves to dance, and she shapeshifts into a two-legged quasi-human, which would be a little weird to see. Maybe that's where the uncanny valley comes from, these Rusalkis coming to land. They find a man who they view as attractive. They lure him into the water to drown. And yeah, that's where the missing men go. But it doesn't say exactly why they're doing this. Is it some kind of revenge? Is this some kind of peculiar mating ritual? I'm not sure. But at other times, the Rusalki is thought to be a spirit of a woman who died in or around the water, usually in really tragic or violent circumstances. They stay on Earth for the time of what would have been their natural lives. They can only leave if their death is avenged. Other legends say Rusalki are the spirits of unbaptized babies. Some say they're dangerous and malicious, while others insist they're not if they're left alone. So we've got some really different ideas about them. And it's really hard to tell. I wouldn't really want to meet one, but they may not actually be dangerous. Maybe they just don't want to be bothered. I can understand that. If I were a fairy, if I were a mermaid, if I were any of these things, I'd want to be left the hell alone, because humans are not always the best caretakers of the world's secrets. And not only that, humans can be vicious when they're afraid. So, hey, I get it. That's what I'm saying. And then in Asia, we have mermaids that bring good fortune. There's some similar mythology in Japan of a water goddess and water demons named kappas, but not as much in Chinese mythology. Though in Chinese mythology, we do have water dragons. We also have the African water deities that are seen as very good and positive spirits. We have the Mami Wata, and I'm so sorry if I am butchering that. They are a group that appear often as mermaids. They heal the sick and they bestow good fortune. Similarly, in the Caribbean and in voodoo, we have one of the Loa called La Sirene, who gives special powers and is also said to give fortune to those who find her trumpet. And she also brings mostly women underwater, and those that survive this process, they actually become much more psychic and they have healing abilities. When African enslaved people were forcibly removed from their homes to the Caribbean, the mermaid La Sirene was said to swim across the ocean to be with her people. She's from the Haitian voodoo Loa tradition. She can be propositioned if you need prosperity, health, love, or good luck. I really love her. I love Aphrodite. I don't know what it is about being a Pisces or having a lot of water in your chart, but you connect really well with these types of gods, goddesses, constructs, really however you want to see them. I think what I love most about Aphrodite and La Sirene is how powerful they are in their beauty, because their abilities with love and luck and all those things, like Aphrodite, for instance, I think could really fuck you up. Like, she, to me, is the most powerful goddess of the Greek mythology tradition, because if you fell in love with a tree trunk, your life is not going to go well, is it? Or if you accidentally fell in love with the absolute wrong person because she decided, or she didn't like you, or something like that. I always found her to be a very interesting character. I do encourage you to think about it. All around the world, we find mermaid stories. I want to know, what do you think? Do you think that these beings are coming up from the deep? Most of the ocean, once again, is unexplored. I love that possibility in legend, and the fact that people have seen them. And, I'm not sure what I think exactly. I've never seen anything like that for myself, but it definitely has meaning that every single country has its own mermaid story. That sort of thing is exciting to me, because it's like, I'm all for it. If all creatures from legends were real, good, evil, I am excited, because I think our world is a lot stranger than we know. So, tell me what you think. Have you ever seen a mermaid? Have you ever seen something like a mermaid? Let me know in the comments. And also, I hope you are blessed by the prosperity of seeing a mermaid today. Have a good one, and we will be talking next time, let's see, about Christmas monsters in December, so join us for that. All right, see you guys later. I have to go focus on other aspects of life today. See you later.